Yeah, I mean, do you
Bill,
think that as we are becoming, I mean, it seems to me we're just becoming much more reliant on these things, devices and whatnot. Everything is electric. This is not the days of the telegraph. I mean, do you think we are becoming more susceptible to the effects of a really powerful solar storm, or are we becoming more resilient?
these things, if they happen 12 hours apart, hypothetically, you could turn off the electricity in the whole world, which would be catastrophic. None of us really in the developed world could go very long without electricity. The Carrington event in 1859, where this, the Carrington event in 1859, where this.
This is the Rebel Call channel. Welcome to today's show. As I'm sure you're seeing pictures, news clips all across the United States of America today about the ongoing massive solar storm that is hitting Earth in what they're calling a historic space event. And of course, conveniently, we just have these things just happening in abundance now. We just had an eclipse which popped up after it wasn't even planned or scheduled to appear for years and years and years into the future. Now we have another event, this massive solar storm. And if you actually watch the news clips and you actually watch how the news is portraying this, they're showing you all sorts of photos and they're convincing you that this is a solar storm that's going on. They want you to know that this is a solar storm that's going on. And then on the flip side, they want you to know that it could short circuit all of our technology and take down our critical infrastructure. They keep bringing up 1859 and the Carrington event, which I covered months ago. They are using a pattern here. We all went through the school system. Nobody really ever heard about the Carrington event, okay? Let's be real. Nobody heard about the Carrington event unless you really study things like the telegraph, okay? Nobody knew what the Carrington event was. They're conditioning you to know what the Carrington event is so that when they decide to short circuit the grid, they can conveniently go, well, this happened before. There was a solar flare for a week in the past, right? And this isn't over yet. This is just beginning, this solar event that they're telling us out of the blue that's just appearing, and they're telling us and warning us about how it would be hard for us to survive days without electricity because, of course, we're so dependent on technology. That's why it's so convenient for them to do this now, especially when it comes to depopulation and also, of course, getting people to comply. Because it'd be very easy to keep people to comply if a grid is down. Nobody has food or water and are forced to go places that they normally would say, I'd never go there. You know, like a FEMA camp. And of course, to get into these places, you're going to need a certain something inside your body that they're hell-bent on getting inside your body. So I'm going to start by playing for you this clip of Bill Nye. They bring Bill Nye out because the younger generations went to school and watched videos all the time of Bill Nye. They got conditioned by this actor, Bill Nye, who, yes, is an actor. He is not a scientist. Nobody even knows where this guy came from. He just rolled out into our television screens inside the school system in the 90s and the 2000s. And now, of course, he's conveniently plastered all over the news whenever they want to convince the audience out there that an event the government is creating is actually an event of science. And listen to him bring up the Carrington event, warn about the catastrophe that could occur, an apocalyptic-like event. And this may not be that event, okay, but it's coming. And they're conditioning you at the very least with this event for when they do shut the grid off to use the solar flare as another reason for your electronics to be shorted. And again, I showed you in the previous video. If you didn't watch it, go watch it. How the government has this type of capability. They have machines, they have airplanes that they use, that they call them the lights out machines, where they could shut it all off in a blink, just like a direct energy weapon. These are things you can't see with your own eye. They could be flying above our houses right now. They could be sitting up there stationed while they're dumping chemtrails on us and just drill the electrical grid with this. Also listen, of course, how these demons always are. This demon even says everything happens for a reason, right? This is an expression we all use sometimes in our day-to-day life. Everything happens for a reason. It's part of God's plan. Well, Bill wants you to know everything happens for a reason. And he wants to ingrain it in the audience that it's physics, right? It's physics, something you can't question. So the reason, of course, wouldn't be physics. The reason would be that the government is ready. They're ready to move forward with the infrastructure collapse and bringing about the AI governance that they have planned. Listen to Bill Nye And listen as well. It's very important to note when he brings up the Carrington event that I mentioned in 1859, listen to the hackling news anchor who can't seem to stop laughing when he brings up the Carrington event. Maybe because it's probably, for all we know, made up or just another event that they created. But the guy seems very entertained about the Carrington event.
Welcome back to our special coverage of the extreme solar storm now crossing North America with the strongest forecast to hit the Earth since 2003. So let's break it down with Bill Nye, the science guy. Bill, welcome in. It's good to have you with us.
Hey, Bill.
A lot of folks here tonight.
It's great to be here.
Yeah, well, a lot of folks, myself included, it wasn't until the recent total eclipse that I really tried to understand space weather. A lot of folks don't think about every day is sunny in space. There's no, thunderstorms. But explain what is happening and the significance of what we're experiencing at this moment.
Well, we might think of the sun as a solid object or a disk, but it's spinning about every month. The north and southern parts of the sun, what humans call the north and south parts of the sun, spin a little faster than the middle. And this friction and this interaction with all the gases that make up the outer layers of the sun create these crazy strong magnetic fields. And from time to time, these charged particles get tossed into space. And so we have both these solar flares where these zaps of electromagnetic energy, photons that you can see, and in the X-ray region, very high frequency, and these charged particles both come shooting out away from the surface of the sun. And if the orbit of the Earth is in the place where those things are shooting, we get zapped, if I may. And of course, who could forget the Carrington event in 1859, where this sort of thing went on for a week, and it just ruined a lot of telegraph systems,
Yes.
which was the state of the art at that time. And so the deal is, everybody, the key thing that we have going on here on Earth, which is really good for us living things, is this magnetic field. Inside the Earth is this churning molten iron and nickel, and it creates this magnetic field that enables your compass to work, what have you. And so this is what causes the charged particles to come down at the North and South Pole, down toward the middle of the Earth. And it's the speed of those particles passing through the atmosphere that creates the aurorae, the aurora borealis and aurora australis. And so it's fantastic. And you guys have been talking about it, and I'm out west here, and when it gets dark, I'm going to be looking, I'm going to be watching. We have clear skies tonight. But the other thing, everybody, that is a real danger to our technological society, is different from 1859, is how much we depend on electricity and our electronics and so on. And, it was a pretty straightforward bunch of things that went wrong in Texas back in February of 2021, where the power went out and it affected an enormous number of people. Well, we probably have systems in place to manage this interaction of these charged particles with Earth's magnetic field, but stuff might go wrong the way it did back in 2003 in South Africa, for example. And this is another thing where we need to evaluate our electrical grid and prepare for this sort of deal, because the sun doesn't take a meeting about when it's going to produce one of these things.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that as we are becoming, it seems to me we're just becoming much more reliant on these things, devices and whatnot. Everything is electric. This is not the days of the telegraph. Do you think we are becoming more susceptible to the effects of a really powerful solar storm, or are we becoming more resilient? Where are we in that right now?
The answer is absolutely, without question, it depends. It depends on the strength of the event, and it depends how much of our infrastructure we have prepared this sort of thing. You probably heard somebody remind each other that the safest place to be in a lightning storm is in a car, because the metal of the car makes the energy from the lightning go around the passengers inside. and then it's on rubber tires is a not irrelevant effect. But we don't have infrastructure on all of our transformers. I say this because on a competitive network, I did a TV show, The End Is Nigh, where we did 6 world-ending scenarios. Well, the one that really worries me is this very one.
Right.
This one, show episode number 3, where we get these coronal mass ejections, CMEs, back to back. So if you had really big ones, like he was talking about a third-story G5, wow, zzz, except in space there's no sound, it would just be, and these things, if they happen 12 hours apart, hypothetically, you could turn off the electricity in the whole world, which would be catastrophic. You know, none of us really in the developed world could go very long without electricity. Oh, there's survivalists and so on, but just objectively, if nothing else, the refrigeration goes bad,
Right.
and we spoil enormous amounts of food. But all this is all solvable, you guys.
And medication.
This is all something we understand.
But something
it's the
worth-
Earth's magnetic field interacting with the charged particles.
But worth worrying about, Bill, even though chances are rare. One study looked back, there was, in addition to the Carrington event, there was another big one in 1921 that, started fires in telegraph stations because the electricity was so powerful. They did a study that said if that happened now, given our grid, it would cause $1 to $2 trillion in damage, could take 4 to 10 years to come back from. 160 million Americans could be affected. And the geology of the East Coast actually makes it more conducive to these sorts of things. So worth thinking about for contingencies, not to worry about, I suppose, tonight, but this is as close as we'll get.
Well, we say, Bill, Abby, everything happens for a reason. And that reason, anyone, is usually physics.
So the Tavistock Institute news anchor, of course, as you heard, cackling when Bill Nye brings up the Carrington event. And of course, look, they're preparing you. They're preparing you for this. They've been warning us, and this is what we've all been talking about, right? We've been talking about a grid shutdown. Everybody's going, they're never going to shut down the grid. They won't shut down the grid. Why would they shut down the grid? Why would they do that? Why would they do it? Why would they do it? They won't do it. That's all we've heard over the last decade. Kind of like when we all were screaming for years that there was going to be some type of fake outbreak to get a certain something in people's bodies. It was the same thing, right? So now we actually see the government bringing attention over and over and over again to grid shutdowns, whether they're threatening us with cyber attacks, whether they're threatening us with solar flares. We've had people even like Klaus Schwab come out and say that what would happen is the whole infrastructure would be nuked. And how convenient, the fourth industrial revolution, this whole thing is about nuking the infrastructure and bringing about a new infrastructure, right? So if the government and the military have the capability in a blink to disable the electronics, and they tell you in movies like Leave the World Behind, what do you think they're telling you for? They're preparing you for it. They want you to believe it when it happens. Because if the civilians out there realize who's really behind it, the people who are going to come back when everything comes back on, the people who are going to say, hey, we're here to help, we're here to save you, they'll get suspicious and realize that these are the people who actually created the problem in the first place, right? Now, don't forget Tucker Carlson and Dennis Quaid, who I recently covered. Dennis Quaid, another government operative who's playing the conservative side like Tucker Carlson is with his red bracelet, as you'll see in this clip. Don't forget that they've been spewing this to the conservative audience as well with the solar flare. And again, we talk about the left and the right, right? The right thinks that they know exactly what's going on because they have a little bit of a taste of what we call conspiracy, which is really truth. And they think they understand everything. They still stay stuck in the left-right paradigm. They still, as you could all see, most of them still believe in NASA. They still believe in space. They still believe in these things that they consider institutions in America. So they don't question those things. So they're also coming out and marketing this solar flare, which everybody should just call it for what it is, which isn't real. They're marketing this to them as well and telling them the same narrative, the 1859 Carrington event, how we didn't change, the infrastructure is not built for a Carrington-like event, so the whole thing could go down and then we'd have to build a whole new one. Oh, right. Listen to Quaid and Tucker Carlson push the same thing onto the conservative audience for a couple of months ago.
There is a 100% probability that our sun generating what they call a GMD, which is a solar storm. It's our Earth magnetic field that we have around the Earth can fry everything that is electric above the ground, including our entire grid.
And this would happen organically, naturally? That's just what the sun does?
There was they call it a Carrington event, which happened in, I think it was 1859. Basically, we had telegraph lines as far as electricity, and it fried our entire telegraph system. It had to be replaced. And
The entire thing?
the entire thing. Imagine what that would do now. There's 100% chance of it happening. 100-year event, they call that one. And
And I'm not good at math, but
in the trillions of
1859
dollars, it would take out not only the electricity, but all of our entire infrastructure and our society runs our electricity. We don't know how to live without it. There wouldn't be any water in your tap. You couldn't get gas for your car. Everything that we rely upon would be gone. The food would melt in our refrigerators. And they predict within a year, about 90% of the population would be dead from starvation, disease. It gets back to the Stone Age again.
Well, that's shocking.
Yeah, so
a bit of information.
That really lifts your day, doesn't it?
It does. I'm adding that to the Armageddon file that's growing.
Nobody's on something that might occur, but this is definitely going to occur.
Just what nature might do.
Yeah, this is not what you call an enemy. This is the sun that we rely upon every day, and these solar storms that happen. Everybody's seen, pictures of the sun where the storm is happening, and these flares come out, and they're ejected out into the solar system. I think it was 2014, we barely missed one by 5 days. And it's going to happen. And then, once it hits the Earth, there's a 50% probability of it either being us or the Eastern Hemisphere, who's ever exposed to that's the sun.
So, an event like this happened in 1859, and it took out our entire telegraph system. And yet we built a system that's vulnerable to it.
Yeah.
How did that happen?
So this solar flare event that's happening, it's not over yet. Okay, remember, week-long event is a word that they both said, and they're saying it in every news clip out there, right? Remember, they're conditioning you with the news. The news isn't to inform you, it's to condition you. So they're telling us about the 1859 Carrington event over and over and over again. 10 years ago, did you know what it was? 2 years ago, did you know what it was? No, you didn't. You didn't have a clue. Did they teach us this? Was there a whole couple months in the public school system about a Carrington event? Of course not, because it didn't serve a purpose then. It didn't serve a purpose, even if we don't know if it's make-believe or not. But now they're conditioning you with the story. That's the point. They're conditioning you with the Carrington event. They keep telling you about it. So now everybody's going to learn about the Carrington event. Why are they going to learn about it? And that might be what this is more of an opportunity for them to do, is to push the Carrington event more and more and more. Over the last couple of months, we've heard about it. We've heard mention of it, so that it's something that you already have ingrained in you. So when it does happen, Carrington event, just like the cyber attack and the cyber hacking. Oh, yeah. Heard all about it. Russian cyber attackers, right? It's a conditioning mechanism. The news is to condition you. It is not to inform you. Now, as for the stuff that we've seen in the sky, because people out there are they're drooling and oohing and ahhing. Very interesting, too, that CNN and all these places were telling their audiences out there to get out their iPhones and take pictures of this, right? Very interesting. They constantly want people looking up. Who knows the long-term effects of what even they're looking at? But they're not looking up during the day when they should be looking up and seeing all those chemtrails get dumped on them. But nonetheless, we see pictures all over the place. The mainstream media is going out of their way to show us the sky, the northern lights. This is very likely Project Bluebeam in action, okay? This is very likely that the entire United States almost was able to see this thing from all north, all south, right? All the way from the top of the country all the way down to Florida. They were able to see this, and then CNN is just plastering the beautiful images all over the place, right? This very likely could have been Bluebeam in action here, a form or a variation of Bluebeam. We all know Project Bluebeam is waiting. They have the ability to do this stuff, to completely put things up in the sky that they could call weather phenomenons, they can call raptures, they could call whatever they want, alien deceptions. That's what Project Bluebeam is here for. They have the technology to do it. So if they are going to do something here, people are going to see this stuff in the sky and they're just going to believe it. They're going to believe because they won't believe that the government has the ability to do this stuff. So they'll just think it's some type of natural phenomenon, right? And I try to tell people, there's a lot of stuff going on at once to just believe that this is all natural phenomenons with the types of tornadoes and hurricanes we're getting year in and year out, right? Earthquakes around the earth, not to mention, the outbreak that just happened. Now, of course, they're telling you about the climate problem all at once, that we need to, watch our carbon footprint. I mean, a lot of stuff going on all of a sudden for people not to be suspicious that this is too much at once, right? Too much is going on. Something's not right here, right? There's no breaks in between because their foot's on the pedal to destroy our infrastructure and bring about a new world order. So what we're seeing in the sky could very well be Project Bluebeam. And for those of you who are like, well, what, you don't believe the solar flare. Well, have you seen any of this stuff in the past? All of a sudden, what did we have one? We had one like 10, 15 years ago. We had the thing in Texas with the grid shutdown. These are test experiment runs. They haven't run a major Project Bluebeam nationwide test yet, okay? Because otherwise we would have all seen it. But very easily they could do something like this. Now, the solar eclipse is another question, whether or not that was real. We went into detail about that, all of us. I covered it on my channel. I know a lot of you covered it on your channels or covered it on the website, putting up stuff in the forum. Very questionable if that was real or not. Remember, they tell us when these things are coming in advance because they plan these things themselves. But that specific eclipse was not supposed to be there. Okay, a year in advance, there was no planned eclipse. It just popped up. They're like, oh, it just popped up out of the blue, right? For some type of an experimental test, which could likely have been a simulation. So the same with this. I mean, they're running simulations constantly. And there's so many boogeymen in play right now that could be blamed for any type of catastrophic event. So they're trying to ingrain this. It's really important you remember this 1859 Carrington event. Not because, for us to learn from history, because we know history is all make-believe. They're ingraining it in us so that we believe the narrative when they shut the grid down, if they want to use that narrative. Or if they want to just do a test run now and shut a few states' grids off and say, well, the electromagnetic field was all messed up. Now, all of a sudden, there's no power in this state, that state, etc. And you're supposed to believe whatever they tell you, right? Because look, there's phenomenon in the sky. Nobody would think further than that. Nobody would think that we know the government has the capability to do this stuff because they've shown us. None of us are just making this up going, oh, they have direct energy. And they tell us it. You can go on, you can go on Lockheed Martin, all these websites or all these YouTube channels, government agencies that make this stuff, and they tell you they could do these things, right? Or you can go through patents and you can go through CIA documents to see Project Bluebeam is legitimately real, right? Okay, so they have the ability to do it. So the question is, why would they do it? Well, does it look like they care about you? Does it look like they love you, right? They literally took people's jobs and livelihoods away if they didn't poison themselves. They're literally removing people from the internet who speak out against them. Yeah, it seems like they really love and care about us. Now, of course, the easiest and the best and the smartest thing for them to do is to create this event around some type of boogeyman, okay? And it might be more believable to say it's science and a solar flare than it would be to say that it's Vladimir Putin or somebody else, because they don't even need to use their political divide for a false flag like this. They could just use science and everybody will believe it. Conservatives will believe it as well, right? And some will come out and question it, I'm sure, at some point when it does happen. If this is the test run or not, we'll see. But clearly, this is a simulation that's occurring in front of our eyes, okay? Clearly. The way that he talked, Bill Nye goes out and talks about the sun spinning and the earth spinning all at the same time, and then the flares are just flying right down to America, of all places, right? Yay, right to America, the one country that they need to destroy the infrastructure the most and shut the grid down the most, the one that they tell you has the most vulnerable power grid, and likely the one country where people are most dependent on technology. Now, I can't say that for sure. I don't know what life in other countries is like, but I can tell you this, you can't leave your house. I see people going on walks, walking their dog. I'm not even kidding you. I see women walking their dogs, husband and wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, walking their dogs. They're both staring at their phone while they're walking their dog, okay? So we have Leave the World Behind, which is a movie that was geared really towards American civilians, okay, about the massive power grid shutdown and what it would be like with the grid off and how people's brains would fry because they won't know how to function. And now this is the time to do this. Why? Because nobody knows how to function without technology. 5 years ago, people were a little bit more dependent on themselves. 10 years ago, yes. Now all the youth do is sit on their phones and their tech. They will go haywire. They couldn't even tell you how, they probably think you could drink ocean water and live. Okay, they'd be like, oh, man, we need water. Let's go down to the beach and drink the water there, right? They don't even know they would die from drinking it. They don't have a clue about anything unless they Google search it, right? Think about it, the power the government wields now with the dependency on tech and the lack of dependency on being self-sufficient. It's a lot. And Bill Nye and these guys know it. They're coming out there laughing in your face about the Carrington event. He's like, oh, the Carrington event, the guy in the background. What was so funny? Did somebody fart? I mean, does anyone know what was so funny when he was cracking up? Well, we know what's so funny, because these people are all in on it together, and they're manipulating you. So keep an eye on the story of the auroras painting the sky as far south as Florida, and as everybody's just in ooh and ah, the government's watching how you're behaving. Are you concerned about a grid shutdown? Well, you're probably posting online, so they're watching. That's what the NSA does. Are you taking pictures like a good little sheeple? Good. Are you preparing more? Are more people making purchases for survival food, etc.? Probably not. And the government's watching. Is anybody out there talking about Blue Beam? Is anybody out there talking about a government-created EMP? Well, they're watching too to see that. How many people are going to fall for it, hook, line, and sinker? The answer is pretty much everybody. And again, if you don't understand why they would do this, just realize this. Shut your power off for a week. Have no food, have no water. Realize the groceries, you can't get anything. And when the government comes and says, hey, we have food and water, come with us. You gonna go? Probably. And that's what they want. They want you to be more dependent on them so they can get what they want. It starts with digital IDs and potions inside your body. Okay? And these are all things that they know in advance. They've been planning for years, and they know how you're gonna react when they do it. I thank everybody for being here. Hope you're all doing well. God bless you as always and your families.